Hello. Thanks for tuning in. As you can see, I still don't have a studio. My space is pretty much done. I just don't want to move all my stuff down there right now. So we're filming here. Also, I have a microphone that is actually like in the frame now. Do you have schizophrenia? Why, yes, I do have schizophrenia. How did you know? Did you know that if you have schizophrenia, you might have an inhibition in your impulse control? And by that, I mean your impulsivity, your impulse issues. You have this impulsive urges you act on all the time. And you do that because your schizophrenia makes it so that your impulsivity is pathological. I have this issue with my schizophrenia. And I'm telling you right now, I did not know that this was a thing. Apparently, it's a well-documented thing. I've found articles on it, but nobody talks about it. Did you know about this? I hope you did, because that means you're more informed than I am, because I didn't know about this. I've had schizophrenia for like 8 years. I've been diagnosed, so I've had it for like 9 years, and I didn't know that this was a thing. Nobody tells you about this. Everybody always tells you about the psychosis and like the parts that make us look like we're crazy. The parts that make people think that we're crazy, right? Or violent or whatever. We're not violent. We're not dangerous usually. So everyone always knows about the psychotic symptoms, right? Like hearing voices, which I don't. And some people don't do that. Experiencing beliefs that are untrue, but also unshaking. I do that. Also, a lot of times people will have issues taking care of themselves. That's me too. In my circles, nobody has talked about the impulsivity issue. We're going to talk about it. I previously made a video talking about binge eating in schizophrenia. However, what I didn't know at the time is that binge eating is just a smaller part of a larger picture of impulse control issues in schizophrenia. The thing about the impulse control issue, impulsive urges, is that your medication doesn't take it away. It doesn't fix it. It actually can make it worse. There is one medication, which I have talked about on this channel, called Abilify, but it's actually aripiprazole. It can make your impulse control issues worse. So it can actually make your impulses like way more intense, which makes it harder to combat them, harder to avoid them, you know, easier to act on them, all that stuff, all that jazz, all the fun junk about impulses and impulsive urges. Now I need to tell you that there's something you can do about it. Just because it's pathological doesn't mean there's nothing you can do. Your hands are not tied, okay? Your hands are free. You can act on this, or you can choose not to act on your impulses. And there is a way to do that. And I'm going to tell you about it right now. It's called DBT. I'm sure you've heard about CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, which can help, I think. I know that dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, can also help. There is a method to the DBT that you can practice on your own. You don't actually need to do it with a therapist. We're going to go over that right now. So it's called, there's actually like a two-part method here. It's the STOP method, STOP, which is an acronym, and it's also the Cope-Ahead strategy. So it's the Cope-Ahead strategy using the STOP method. Okay, I found an article on this, and I've practiced this now for a few days, and I know it's only been a few days, but it has made a difference in my life. So it does actually help me. Anyway, it helps me. It sounds kind of silly. Like when you think about it, it might sound kind of silly to you that this can help. Like you just think your way out of impulsive urges, but like it does work. If you think it might work, then it actually does work. The power of the mind, man. I'm telling you, this is kind of a tangent, but I once got a flu shot. I think it was a flu shot. You know, sometimes your arm hurts after you get a flu shot or an immunization of some sort. Well, my arm was sore. My shoulder area was sore for days and days, like a week. And I actually was told that's not normal. It shouldn't be sore anymore. I had to tell myself over and over again, my arm is not sore. It is perfectly fine. The soreness is gone. And eventually it just went away. And I think that's because I told myself that. People say you tell yourself you're stupid enough times and you start to believe it. You can make yourself believe anything. This first part here, we're going to identify the triggering situation. So it's a lot of identification, because what you're doing is you're identifying a situation ahead of time, and you're going to rehearse what you're going to do, like your reaction to that situation, so that you don't act on the impulses. Okay, so this is the goal of this process. Okay, so while you're identifying the triggering situation, I suggest you like write this stuff down, like take notes, because it's easier than like keeping it all in your head, at least for me. So you want to identify the triggering situation, lay it out in detail, what you usually feel in the situation, like the who, what, when, where. You want to talk about your feelings and your thoughts and what the urge is, like lay it out in detail. What is the urge? The second step is the S of stop, which actually stands for stop. I didn't make this up. The point of the second step is to identify how you're going to stop, pause, and not react yet. You're just going to pause. And you're going to think about what's going on. Literally, you're going to say to yourself, stop. Or you're going to think of the color red, or you're going to think of a stop sign or something like that to get yourself to actually like stop. take a pause. Then the third step is called take a step back. That's the T in stop. That is where you can literally remove yourself from the situation. So if you're in the kitchen and you want to binge eat, you remove yourself from the kitchen. You can turn your eyes away, turn your body away, that kind of thing. That's what take a step back is. Like you're literally physically possibly taking a step back. And then the next step is observe. That's the O in stop. The point of this one is to observe how you want to proceed. So you might meditate, you might stretch your body while you're like thinking this through. You might do some breathing exercises. So you want to identify your thoughts in the situation and like kind of self-validate them and really like accept that this is what's going on. So you're observing, you're taking note of, that kind of thing. Okay, then the next step is to proceed mindfully. That's the P in stop. This is the part where you actually act, because you're going to have to react to the urge, or like in that might be like avoiding it, but like you're gonna have to react at some point. I'm so sorry for the noise. My dog is hiding beside the couch here, and he's just kind of like scratching at the wall and stuff. First, this proceed mindfully. You want to act skillfully because you want to like really think about how you're gonna assert your needs. You want to think about how you're gonna properly I guess, like smartly react to the urge, to the trigger. Okay, then the sixth step is to identify the ideal outcome of the situation. This is after stop, but it's also part of the cope ahead strategy. So what you want to do is you want to identify what is the ideal situation in here. Like what's your ideal outcome, which is probably, I know for me, a lot of times it's like the binge eating is the problem. So my ideal outcome is I don't binge eat. I avoid the food. I leave the kitchen. I avoid the trigger. I avoid the urge. I don't do it. It passes basically. And that's it. I just proceed with my day, as if nothing happened. I eat what I need to eat, but I don't eat more than that. And you can also add to your ideal outcome how you're going to feel. So like, what would make you feel proud in this situation? What would make you feel relief in this situation? Okay, so step 7 is to practice, like rehearse your coping ahead strategy. So you want to go through your cope ahead strategy and rehearse what you're going to do. So you want to actually read it out loud, visualize everything that's going on. This is how it's going to feel. And you like really feel that. And then you think, oh, this is how I'm going to act. And this is what I'm going to do. And you go through all the steps, practice it essentially. That's the cope ahead strategy. I have an article that I will link in the description of this video because it is a good article. That's actually where I got the information from. That's the strategy that I've been using. It seems to be working, but you need to do the rehearsal and you need to do the planning every day, or else you just give in to your urges. At least that's what happens for me. They're very strong, okay? They're very strong. And it sounds ridiculous, but maybe it doesn't sound ridiculous to you. And if that's the case, that's good. But it sounds ridiculous to me. Like I can see why it might sound ridiculous to people to be like, oh, I just like rehearse not doing something and then I cannot do it. Like power of the mind, I tell you. If you need to practice resisting the urge in your head before you get to the urge, if you do that every morning, you go to work. Like for me at work, they have treats in the kitchen. They've got food, random food, desserts, whatever, the staff kitchen, and I have to go to the kitchen to get water. And so I always try to think to myself, I'm going to go in with blinders on, just to go to the water. And that's part of my cope ahead strategy is like to say, stop, hammer time. No, I don't say that. I say stop, cope ahead time. I don't say that either. What I do say is I say stop to myself and I think of the color red and I say stop. You don't need any. You don't need any of the food or the dessert or whatever. You don't want any of the food or the dessert. You're not going to eat any of the food or the dessert. And you are not eating any. And then you go in, I go in. With blinders on, I get my water and I leave. I just hightail it out of there. And I do that every time I have to get water. It actually helps me not to give in to the urge, to not act on it, to not grab the food, because I have the urge to grab it and eat it all. I'm trying to lose the weight that I put on because of my binge eating, which is an impulse control issue. So thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Yeah, I hope that you learned something. I hope you picked something up. If you do have this problem, maybe you don't have schizophrenia, but you have an impulse control issue. Hopefully this helps you. It does take some practice and you can't be too hard on yourself if it doesn't work the first time or the second time, just because changing your behavior is very difficult. And that's something you have to keep in mind, is that like if you do fail the plan, is the plan a problem, or did you not rehearse it, or something like that? Like when I don't rehearse it, I give in to my urges. That's just how it works for me sometimes. When I do rehearse it, it's much, much easier to resist the urge because you already have that thought going in your head and you're reminding yourself of it all the time, right? And every time I go to the kitchen, I'm like, okay, there might be food. This is the plan. This is what I'm doing. So yeah, thank you for watching and I appreciate you, all 48 of you. Thank you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.